Welcome to this episode of Relatively Famous, the podcast where I, Chip White, interview relatives of famous people. My relative is Vanna White of Wheel of Fortune, and that qualifies me to have a podcast, in my opinion. Today we have a special guest, Athena Finger. Her grandfather was Bill Finger, who is huge in the comic book world. He, I think, basically came up with all the villains for Batman. So we're going to find out a lot about that. But first, I want to thank visitmyrtlebeach.com for their support. If you're looking for a great family vacation or somewhere to go play golf, a great beach to take the kids to, 2,000 restaurants, 5,000 accommodations, go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. That's kind of my hometown. You can ask how, what I was like growing up. Go to visitmyrtlebeach.com to plan your perfect family vacation. And today we're going to welcome Athena Finger.
Relatively Famous podcast with Chip White.
Athena, welcome to Relatively Famous.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Okay, first question. You and I are in your hometown, and we're going to go somewhere that is passion for you. Where would you take me that is something very passionate for you? Maybe it's not your hometown. It could be a convention. What is a place you would take me that you really would want to share with me?
Well, I grew up in Boston, so I'd probably want to take you to the Museum of Fine Arts because I spent a lot of time there, and it's one of my favorite places.
Is that on Huntington Ave?
Yes, it is.
I did a TV show with the fire department about 2 blocks from there, if you believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
Yep, I love visiting Boston. And I love that museum. We took our kid there. It was great. So what was your most special memory or the thing that really you love about that particular museum?
Well, like I said, I got to spend a lot of time there. I was a freshman, just finishing my freshman year of high school when I moved to Boston. So my mom found some art stuff for me to do, and one of them was through the actual museum. And then I also took a class through the museum school, which was like a art college that was attached to the school. So I had to do a lot of sketching in the museum and exploring. And since I was a student, I could go to the museum whenever I wanted. So I took full advantage of that.
So I guess art runs in your family. So your grandfather is Bill Finger. And in the comic world, he's huge. Tell everybody why he's so important in the comic book world.
Well, as you can see, I'm wearing Batman. Well, Bill was the co-creator of Batman. He was the original writer. So a lot of the mythos came from him since he was coming up with all the colorful stories and characters and villains for Batman to fight. So he really did come up with a lot of the Rogues Gallery, and he co-created a lot of it, and especially with Batman himself in the beginning with Bob Kane, he fleshed out the character with him, and so he wasn't just the co-creator of Batman. If you know Green Lantern, he was the co-creator of the original Green Lantern Alan Scott character, and a lot of other things. He was very influential with his storytelling. He's one of those people that was in the bullpen that people would go to if they were stuck with a story. He had a gimmick book that he would share ideas with. So, he was a wealth of storytelling, and that's really, where he was. But he wasn't credited for his creation for 76 years. It fell on the family. So my father fought a good fight while he was alive. And then it was passed on to me when he passed away. And we resolved it in 2015. So now his name is on the byline.
I was going to ask you that because I understand you were very instrumental in kind of, I want to say, correcting a bad history.
Yes.
What was the process like for you in this journey?
Oh, well, I inherited the mess when I was just shy of my 16th birthday. So I didn't really know what to do with it when I was a teenager. And, in the early 90s, there wasn't a huge movement to give these creditors the creators, excuse me, the credit that they deserve, or the recognition, or any kind of mention. I mean, a lot of people thought it was Bob Kane only, and didn't realize that there was a whole team of people behind him, because it wasn't just Bill. He had other ghost writers, and he had ghost artists and things like that, which was normal. I mean, that was all normal for the time. But they weren't giving credit. And they weren't really giving credit until, more recently, in the last 15 years, they've kind of made this shift in the industry to start giving these unrecognized and uncredited contributors. I think Bill's more than just a contributor. I refer to him as one of the founding fathers of the industry, since he was, there at the beginning, back in the 39 and 40 era. I mean, Superman came out in 38. So, 38, 39, 40, those were foundational years, and he was a big part of that.
What is life like for you now? Because you've settled, you're kind of, I guess, not having to deal with all that, but now, you still, I go to conventions. I mean, what is life like for Athena?
Well, I have two very different lives within my one. My day job's a little boring. Some would say I'm a teacher during the day, but I do go to conventions, and I do plenty of podcasts. I love talking about Bill's story because it does have such a happy ending. We do get to celebrate that he has the recognition now, and that his story is actually getting out there. There's still, unfortunately, a large population that still don't know Bill's story, but with the documentary that came out in 2017 on Hulu, Batman and Bill, a lot of non-comic people were exposed to Bill's story, which was amazing. Because it's not just about comics, it's about pop culture. Also, Batman is a huge character. Whether you read the comics, watch the cartoons, watch the movies, play the video games, color in the coloring books. I mean, ride on the rides at Six Flags, it's everywhere. So it's really a pop culture injustice. People didn't really know where these wonderful stories came from, since Bob Kane's name was the only name associated with the title for so long. And, a lot of creators don't get the credit, or they get the credit stolen, not just in creative circles within comics. I mean, it happens in science, it happens in a lot of different places, unfortunately. So it's a real human story, you didn't get the recognition that you deserve, and here's the story of this one particular person. So, getting that story out there is still a big thing for me, so that people do understand where this iconic symbol came from.
Well, you're not just Bill's granddaughter, you're also Athena Finger. And you're a teacher. What do you teach? What's the joys of teaching? What's the horrors? I mean, you hear all kinds of stories.
Well, I teach mathematics, so nobody likes me. A few do. What can I say? A few do. No, I've taught in and out of the classroom for about 20 years now. I'm actually transitioning into a more demanding role of being a site director for a learning center. So I'm taking that on, getting out of the classroom, and start facilitating more tutoring centers, and helping students outside of the classroom. I know that that's a big need. I've been a private teacher for a long time. So it's something that I enjoy doing. More so than, in the traditional classroom setting. It's a little trickier in the classroom when you have a whole bunch of kids. versus having only one or two. So, but I mean, I do a lot of other things. I'm creative. I like to paint. I just had a show recently. Um, so I try to have balance with
Okay.
everything. You know, the convention scene really brought my artistic side back out. I kind of put it aside because I was building my teaching career. And so when I came in 2014, I was like, oh, okay, I remember this. There's some creativity going on that I kind of suppressed for a little while. And I dated an artist for a little while, and he, kind of showed me some tricks that he uses to help bring down cost for canvas because it's super expensive, especially the large
Yeah.
large scale. So
Yeah. Art and the
it's
paint and the
been great.
brushes and
Oh
everything. I've dabbled here and there just a little bit, and I've got everything sitting in the closet. And it's like, well, that's $100 just sitting there. I need to go do something with
yeah.
it.
Or donate it. Donate
Yeah.
it to an after school program or something.
So, what type of art do you do? What? I know you said you sketched it in Boston in high school. What is your medium now? What do you love doing? What's the thing that just gets
I
you
paint
rocking?
mainly with acrylics right now. I mean, I still do some pencil sketching, not as much as I should. Time is a factor. And for the last like 6 months, I was completely consumed with building up my portfolio for the show that I just had. Because I didn't really have anything. I've done a lot of commission work. So with commission work, you don't get to keep it. It goes off to the client. So I had to like paint some new stuff, which was great. I had a lot of fun with it. Um, comic art is what the main focus was, but I do a lot of different other stuff. I've done some Polackish type stuff, and I do a lot of flowers, and I've done some other kind of portrait work and stuff like that. So I try to keep it a little varied.
Okay. So you have this show. Are you selling your art, or because you just said it's commission, it goes away. It may sound like you wanted to hoard what you were doing.
Oh no!
Do you love to sell it?
I do photograph my work, and so I do try to make decent prints out of my photographs. The show that I just had, we had it on Bill's birthday, actually, February 8th, that just passed, his 111th birthday. So we had a little birthday party, and I posted. I had painted a bunch of pieces that were connected to him. Either they were a panel from a story he wrote, or he had something to do with the character, or whatever. He was connected to it to some way. I had a couple other original pieces that were not comic related, but since it was on Bill's birthday, we focused on the Batman theme, and they are available. And you can reach out to me if you'd like. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook and X and Threads.
Excellent. Okay.
My name in. I
Well,
think I remembered all of them.
yeah, hopefully you'll sell some stuff off of this. Now, you said your father started the battle for recognition, and you kind of inherited it. You said at 16.
Yes.
Was it a what drew your father to decide to do it, and for you to at 16 at least get it thrown at you, but then eventually kind of really pick it up? What was the passion behind that for the family?
Well, I know that my dad really wanted Bill to have the recognition and the credit for what he did. Bill wasn't treated very nicely at the end of his life, so I think it was more of a campaign to right the wrong of how he was treated at the end. I mean, a lot of the Golden Age writers and artists were not treated well in the 60s, when they started asking for basic things like health insurance. They were kind of um, not utilized like they were in the past. So I mean, they were thrown a bone, but not as big of a bone as it used to be. And so it made it really difficult for them to, or at least for my grandfather, to survive. I mean, he was struggling at the end of his life. And so I think my dad really felt passionate to make sure that he did have a voice, and his story was told, and not just within a select small community. He wanted it to be known what his father did. He was proud of his dad. I mean, he was disappointed that his dad didn't fight for himself, but the the take I have on that is that being an artist, you do get consumed with your craft. And he was a writer, so I think he really just lived in his writing. You know, he was consumed by the storytelling and making sure that it was a good story and that it was up to his standards. And so when you're consumed with your art, it really doesn't give you the time or the know-how to navigate the other side of that and be able to fight the legal side.
Right.
You know,
There's
tricky.
artists and entertainers. So many people are focused on their craft that they forget the business part of it. They forget that it's show business, and they go broke or they get ripped off, and because it's all about, to them it's the art, and they think, well, I got a business manager, they'll take care of it, and this doesn't work that way.
Yeah. No, and even that, they didn't have business managers. They were all speaking for themselves. You know, it wasn't like what we have in place now. I mean, the industry is very different now than it was when it was being formed back in the 30s and 40s. Like nobody expected this stuff to be around for 85 plus years. Like
Yeah.
who thought that back then? They were like, oh, these funny little pages, they'll be around for a couple years and that's it. They didn't even keep the artwork. They threw it on the floor. Like they didn't see any value in it whatsoever. But now we understand the value of it and the historical value of it too, because there's so much intertwined with not just pop culture, but just our culture in general that's come out of this medium.
Yeah, it's the same with cartoons, cartoon cells before they became popular in the 90s. I'm friends with Mel Blanc's son, and Mel used to have cartons under his bed that he would just throw them in a Christmas card,
Wow.
to people, because there was no value at one point, or they didn't see it. Of course, things changed. And
right.
Now, you're an artist. Your grandfather's an artist and a writer. What made you go to mathematics?
Well, I'm not a writer, so I did not gravitate towards the language of English. But I did gravitate towards the language of mathematics. And I don't know, it just always came easy to me. I mean, even in middle school, I was a mentor for students in local schools that would come to the private school that I went to, and I would work with school, under my grade. Obviously, I was in the 8th grade at the time. But they would come in after school and we would help them with their homework. And I was the one that was always helping with math homework. And then when I decided to go back to college in my late 20s, I'd already started my family. And I was like, well, I should probably go into something that I can have vacations with my family. My son's going to be out during the summer. I should probably find something that works with that schedule. And that's not really what happened when I got hired at the college.
Okay. So you were never his teacher, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go into elementary ed, and then my first professor that I had for math was like, why would you do that to yourself? Just focus on math, and you'll always have a job. And I do. I mean, I can always teach privately. That's always going to be a thing. And everyone needs math help for some reason. I don't know why math teachers can't explain it in a way where a lot of people can get it, but hey, it gives me job security.
Well, that new math, I mean, I can't, that just blows my mind. I tried to, our son, when he was in school, it was kind of just coming out, and I'm going, well, that's just the stupidest thing. It's just 2 + 2 is 4. Why they got to make it?
No, I don't do any of that Common Core stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a product of the 80s. Come on, I grew up in the 80s. If you didn't know your multiplication, you didn't pass the 3rd grade. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I can never figure out why did they Common Core? Anyway, I'm not going to preach about that.
Yeah, no. You know what? A lot of my students thank me for showing them the old school way.
The easy way.
The easy way of doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so you go to conventions. What is it like? Okay, what is your favorite convention, and what's it like for you to be at these conventions?
Oh, what's my favorite? I don't know. I mean, I go to San Diego Comic Con every year because I present at the awards ceremony at the Will Eisner's. Because they give it an award in Bill's name. They give out two for people who didn't get enough credit for their contributions in the industry with writing. So we give one to a living person and to one deceased person, which is awesome. It's a lot of fun. I get to do that every year. Um, as far as my absolute favorite, I would probably have to say it would be my first San Diego, which was back in 2014. It was my second convention ever.
Yeah.
Let's throw Athena in the deep end. Um, and I don't know, it was amazing to see the amount of people who did know who Bill was, because I was still naive about how many people knew about Bill. I was like, still like, maybe it's just a few people that know him. No, there's actually a large culture, a large group, a community of people that know the history of the industry, and they know that the contributions of everybody. And
Yeah,
I was like, people exist. Wow, this is amazing.
it is. I've only been to just a couple of comic cons. Pensacola I went to because they had a film festival and they had a film in it, and
Oh, okay.
I'd never really been to one, and it blows me away because I've been to 100 film festivals. I've been to recently a podcast convention and the Comic Con, and each one has their core people that just know everything,
Oh, yeah.
and well, we're in a comic book shop here. I'm learning this whole comic thing. As a kid, I had some. My mom made us little Batman capes when we were kids with a little logo on the back, and I was a fan of the TV show. But I'm learning this whole culture of comic books and that life.
It's,
And
I was intimidated coming into it because I didn't grow up in the community. I mean, I was not part of the culture. I didn't even really read comics growing up. So I was like kind of scared that the fans weren't going to like me. I was like, they're going to reject me because I don't know my ins and outs of Batman.
how did they accept you? How did they treat you?
They're like, it's okay. We'll tell you all about it because it's our favorite thing to talk about. So I got schooled a lot, which was great. I needed it.
So what's the coolest thing that you learned from a fan about your grandfather?
That he wrote for Marvel. I had no idea that he wrote for Marvel. No clue whatsoever. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, I wrote for Timely. I'm like, what's Timely? They're like, that's Marvel. I'm like, oh, okay.
Now you got to collect DC and Marvel, right? Now
Yeah, it went everywhere. Which means that he was really utilized in the right way. I mean, if you're gonna be a great storyteller, you want to be telling your stories everywhere, right? And
what
which he ended up doing. Towards the end of his life, he wrote an episode for the Batman show in the 60s. He wrote a couple movies. He wrote for TV and radio. Like, he did a lot other than just comic writing.
What were some of the movies he wrote?
His most famous one is The Green Slime. And then he also wrote another one, Track of the Moon Beast. Those are the two. They're sci-fi 60s movies.
Okay.
Yeah, The Green Slime is fun. There's a little cult following with The Green Slime. Here's some trivia.
Okay.
Mystery Science Theater. Their
Yep.
pilot episode was supposed to be The Green Slime, which would have been awesome.
Oh man, did they ever do one of it with it or?
I don't think so. I don't think it made it, but they were supposed to. And then I never got into the show, so I don't know if they eventually did it or not. but I think it would have been pretty cool. It's
So,
a silly movie, but it's fun.
there, you know what? Some of those are the best. I mean, my at Christmas when my father-in-law was alive, we would sit and watch the Sci-Fi Channel and just some of the, Piranhaconda and these just crazy sci-fi films that they were fun, entertaining, and it was
Yeah, silly, campy.
get lost
Special
in them.
effects were so different then, so it's cool to see them with all the practical effects
Yeah.
that they did back in the day.
Now, have you come up with any of your own character in art that you want to draw and say, "Hey, write me a comic book, someone"? No.
I think my face says, I don't really see. Okay, so back in the day when I was younger, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get into that. Sure, why not? It makes sense what my grandfather did, right? And then I was realizing that I suck at drawing the same thing over and over and over. Every time I draw Batman, he looks different.
Yeah.
Every single time. Every time I draw anything, it always looks different, even if I'm trying to make it look the same.
Yeah, I never thought about that. That's got to be difficult making the same character every time.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how they do it. Like, it's skill that I don't have, so I don't do it. And, I did go on Kevin Smith's podcast, and I had given him a painting as a gift. And so he's like, oh, we should do a comic together. I'll write it. And you look like you would be really good with splash pages, which is true. Like, I think if I did whole page type of stuff, I'd probably be a little better than having to do like panel work where you're having to do so many drawings of the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
And that would have been fun if it ever happened, but it did not happen, unfortunately. So, I mean, people have mentioned it to me. I've kicked a couple ideas around with some people as far as like incorporating my work in some way, like, have it in the background maybe or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just, it's not something that I gravitate towards. So.
Hey, it doesn't necessarily, I'm not good at spelling, and my sister's like the queen of letters,
That's why I didn't go to the written word.
Exactly. So what is your favorite painting that you've done, and do you still have it?
Oh. Okay. My favorite painting that I've done of recent years. Excuse me. I would have to say, oh, that's really hard because I've done some really cool pieces that I still have in my possession. I would have to say it is not a comic piece. It is a 5-foot dragon in its Asian style with like the Japanese sun behind it, the bright orange with the wide rays coming out from behind it. It's 5 feet by 3 feet. It is available if anybody wants to buy it.
You never, hey, there you go. We just sold some art. Okay. We're getting close to our time. So I just stay around 30 minutes. Just take your time and keep our viewers interested. So what question did I not ask you, or something that you really wanted to share that we didn't talk about?
Well, my current campaign for Bill, I should probably throw this out there because I haven't been plugging it lately with all of the devastation that's been going on out in California. But in September, Batman got a star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood with Bob Kane and Bart Ward and Adam West. And so now my campaign is trying to get Bill a star. And I'm doing a fundraiser on GoFundMe so that we can raise the $75,000 so that we can strong arm the people at the Commerce there and say, here, we're serious. Come on. I've talked to them in the past, and they did say that Bill's name has come up in the past. It's just a matter of forcing them to do it now, I think. And so with the campaign that I'm doing with the fundraiser, it is to allow the fans to participate in getting Bill the star, and ensuring that he has his place with the other Batman people and Batman himself. I mean, I think it's kind of sad that he doesn't have a star yet. I mean, he didn't just do comics. He wrote for TV and movies and radio and all of the mediums that they do out there. So we need him to have that as an honor as well. So that's what I'm working on. The link for the GoFundMe is in my Instagram page. So if you'd like to donate, you can go there. I'm not quite sure how you search in GoFundMe. So I don't know if you search my name or if you search Bill's name, if it comes up. But it is linked in my Instagram.
Excellent. Well, Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, get on the bandwagon.
Get on it, right?
You know, there's a lot of blank spaces for stars. I've been there. I know. Well, Athena, I really appreciate your time today, and I've learned a lot. And I think I love your humor. I love your life, and I love the fact that you are still championing for your grandfather, because a lot of people just give up, and I love your enthusiasm for it.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, who knows? Maybe we'll see you in the comics, as they used to say. Oh, no, I think they used to say we'll see you in the funny papers. A little different. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Athena, thank you for being on today. I learned a whole lot about your grandfather, and I hope he gets that star. We're going to be pushing for him. I want to thank visitmyrtlebeach.com for their support. If you're looking for the perfect vacation, family vacation, go to visitmyrtlebeach.com. Myrtle Beach is 90 miles of beautiful coastline, 2,000 restaurants, 90 golf courses, amusement parks. That's visitmyrtlebeach.com and plan your perfect family vacation. I want to thank Nelco Media and Philip Nelson for helping put this together. And I want to thank Nelco Comics for the great location. Hey, looking for that certain comic book? Check out Nelco Comics in San Antonio. They may have it. Now, if you happen to be famous, related to someone famous, or know someone famous that'd make a great guest, you can reach out to me at podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. That's podcastrelativelyfamous@gmail.com. And most of all, I really, truly want to thank you, the listener and the viewer. I am humbled that you take your time to be with us. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Relatively Famous with Chip White. Please like and subscribe to Relatively Famous with Chip White.